Why do people believe that Hamas is a resistance group and not a terrorist group?
Because they're stupid and they're ignorant. I'm an ex-Muslim, and so somebody who left Islam is supposed to be executed according to Muhammad. Hamas's effort has always been to eradicate the Jews and to get rid of them. And they say that this is Allah's promise and they will aspire and hope for this promise no matter how long it takes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Black and Jewish podcast. I have a special guest and personal friend of mine with me today, the Apostate Prophet. What's up?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, very well.
Before we get started, can you give me a little prophecy? You prophesy for the show? Good things?
Interesting things will happen.
Interesting things will happen? Yeah. Good, interesting things?
Yeah, good, interesting things will happen, and also in general, just things will happen.
Good things.
Yeah.
Okay. Amen. Yeah. So before we jump into your trip to Israel, I want to talk to you about Islam. Mm-hmm. I'm very uneducated about Islam. I know that you've built your platform as the ex-Muslim and actually going against Islam. And my first question is, as an ex-Muslim, do you believe that do you think there's anything good about Islam that Islam brought to the world? Like any good tenets?
That's a very, very interesting question because I am very, very much against Islam. I have a big problem with Islam. I speak out very firmly and openly against it and will not hold back when talking about what's wrong with it. And sometimes people ask me this question, like, is there anything good about Islam? And then every single time I pause and think, I'm supposed to say something good.
Yeah.
Maybe at least something good, maybe at least to even appear reasonable. But the thing is, it's very difficult to think about something good, about something redeeming about it when it's just so bad. And I guess one good thing that I can say about it is that it has a sense of, community and establishes a certain moral system in a vacuum. But it's not the best moral system out there. And I would say it's actually one of the worst.
If it's the worst moral system out there, do you believe that most Muslims are immoral?
No, it would depend on how much they practice it, how much they are part of it, how much they go into it, how much they follow it. I would say that the good thing about Muslims is that the majority of Muslims out there don't actually practice Islam properly and follow Islam properly. It's actually the minority of Muslims who would follow Islam as it is written, as it is supposed to be, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. If more people follow, if everyone in the world followed Islam perfectly, and if everyone was exactly like Muhammad, the world would be a worse place. Yeah.
So are the jihadists or the extremists following Islam as is?
It's a difficult statement to make. I would say that they are definitely following it more closely than the average Muslim. But I would also not say something, controversial like, ISIS members are following Islam perfectly and others not. There is always some nuance. There are some differences between the different applications and understandings of Islam. But in general, you could say that Islam has at its fundamentals extremely radical ideas, and it is built on the idea of submitting to Allah, following Muhammad perfectly, and then basically giving up your entire anything else that is out there in the world, anything else that interests you for the sake of Islam, to impose Islam not only on yourself but also upon society and upon others, and to fight for Islam. So this is how Islam is supposed to be. And this doesn't mean that you have to be a terrorist. It just means that you have to be radical.
What are some of the immoralities of Islam?
Oh, there is a lot.
What are the top 3?
Well, I'm an ex-Muslim, and as an ex-Muslim, so somebody who left Islam is supposed to be executed according to Muhammad. So he said that there are clear statements where he says if somebody leaves his religion, kill him. And he also says a person cannot be killed, or a Muslim cannot be killed under these three circumstances, or unless there are these three circumstances. And one of them is, for example, for murder. The other is for leaving Islam and leaving the Muslim community. So I would say that the fact that Islam has a very strict application of if you say, I have left Islam, if you admit it, then you deserve the death penalty. This has been agreed in Muslim history and Muslim jurisprudence throughout the schools. The fact that this is the case makes it a religion that is just unchangeably and strictly bad, because it prevents humans from being honest, from questioning, from seeking, from speaking, and so on. This is one of the greatest immoralities. And the others are, the complete hate against disbelievers, against Jews. And then there are also issues like, child marriage, treatment of women, and things like that.
Circling back to Muhammad, is Muhammad like a demigod? Because I know like one of, there's a famous book, The Khazari, and we talk about the differences between Judaism, Islam, Christianity, etc. And one of the things that we say is like, Islam is closer to Judaism in the fact that we all worship one God. Like we don't have a prophet that we worship. And you have the Prophet Muhammad. Our greatest prophet is Moshe, but we don't worship Moshe whatsoever, nor like follow Moshe. We don't have this idea of like a following of Muhammad or a following of Moses. So when Muhammad says, whoever's to leave my religion, is that mean he is seen as some type of God?
It's more like it's more like a cult. It's like a cultish idea. I made a video in the past called "The Cult of Muhammad" because I thought that was the best way to describe it. It's and I did point out this difference. Then there is often a misunderstanding that Islam is just meant to be pure monotheism, because that's what it emphasizes. It's meant to be pure monotheism, and that's all you follow. That's it. That's not really it. When you enter Islam, you're supposed to say a certain phrase called the Shahada. You're supposed to testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So you don't just become a Muslim by saying, "Oh, I believe in Allah. I believe in Allah and I will worship nothing else." That's not enough. You also have to say, "And I testify that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." So that's a requirement to become a Muslim. And then you also have to acknowledge and approve of everything that the Quran says. And the Quran commands you on at least two occasions very explicitly to obey Muhammad and obey Allah. It literally tells you that a true believer has to obey whatever Muhammad says, has to do whatever Muhammad says, and has to do whatever Allah says. So Muhammad is more than just a messenger who comes and tells you what Allah has revealed to him. You are also meant to fully obey him and never question him and do whatever he says. And
are there contradictions between what Muhammad says and what Allah says?
Yes, there are.
Okay. There
are certain contradictions. If you want to get into the details, there are certain contradictions. There are such as that. You say that you are not supposed to that you're supposed to only obey Allah. It also criticizes the Jews and Christians, for example, by saying the Jews and Christians took their priests as gods besides Allah, and it condemns them for that. This is in chapter 9, verse 30. But on the other hand, you are then supposed to, and it says that you do that by by basically giving them authority, by giving your priests and others authority and listening to them instead
What's
of
the
listening
difference
to Allah.
if you listen to Muhammad
Exactly.
and has
But
authority?
but then it also says that you are supposed to obey Muhammad fully, and Muhammad is then going around making all kinds of revelations and saying all kinds of different things, where it gets confusing whether this is actually a Quran verse or just his statement. And then you have Quran verses laid out, but you have also statements by himself that very much sound like Quran verses, and you are not supposed to listen to any, you're not supposed to make any human a god besides Allah, but you are also supposed to obey him fully. And it's like, how does it exactly work? But you don't really think about these things when you are a Muslim, because it's a given that you obey Muhammad and that you just give your whole heart and everything to him. But
what did Muhammad say about Israel, about Jerusalem?
So it is very complicated, but also kind of not, actually. Muhammad had a big problem with Jews. That is because in the beginning, so he came out of a polytheistic environment, polytheistic Arab environment, and he disliked his own culture and his own religion, and he looked up to Jews and Christians for their belief in one God. And he preached in the beginning that he is just like them, and the same God sent him. So he went up to the Jews in the city of Medina, where Jews were dominant, and started preaching to them. And according to the narrative, the Jews then disapproved of him quite quickly when they realized that this guy pretends to be a prophet from the same God and just talks a lot of nonsense, doesn't actually know anything. And they rebuked him and rejected him, upon which he didn't react very nicely. He quickly developed a hatred toward the Jews, and you can find that in the Quran. In the beginning, chronologically speaking, the Quran talks nicely about the Jews, and then it gets very hostile to a point where it says that those most hostile to you will be the Jews. And then it condemns them. In chapter 9, verse 29, it says that's then later at the point where he also starts getting into confrontations with Christians, and he also gets the same rejection from the Christians, whom he initially likes, over the Jews. Then he gets the rejection from them, then he starts hating them as well. So the Quran suddenly goes that you're supposed to fight and subjugate the Jews and the Christians, and that the Jews and the Christians have false beliefs and are disbelievers and condemned and so on. But when it comes to Jerusalem and Israel, the Quran repeatedly refers to Jews as the children of Israel, in line with the biblical understanding.
So Muhammad at least got that correct.
Yeah. It never mentions Jerusalem. This is the very funny thing. It never ever mentions Jerusalem, except one time it talks about how one time Muhammad was taken and brought to the farthest mosque. That's what it says in the sources in the Quran. And if you go into the hadith, which are the narrations by people about Muhammad, there is the story that Muhammad was one night woken up and put on the back of a flying horse and was taken to the farthest mosque, and was then from there lifted to the heaven and saw the heaven and interacted with prophets, and then went to hell and all that, and then came back to his bed again. And that farthest mosque is literally called Masjid al-Aqsa. And that is then understood to be the mosque in Jerusalem. The problem is that there was no mosque in Jerusalem. So when the Muslim conquest of Jerusalem happened, they built a mosque then on the Temple Mount and called it the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
So they don't actually know where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is or was, because it was his dream.
Exactly. And so you call it a dream. It's funny.
Or vision. Was it a dream or a vision? I'm sorry.
I call it a dream because the thing is, the actual traditional understanding of it is that he was literally woken up in the middle of the night and put on a horse by an angel and then brought, physically up to the heavens.
So it's something that actually happened.
Yeah, it's supposed to have actually happened. But the thing is, he also says that when he came back, his bed was still warm. And I just joke and say, it's called a dream.
You're right. Well, we have some stories like in Torah of like when Abraham was washing the feet of angels, they say, was that an actual dream, or was that, the rabbis argue, like, was he in a vision? Was he in a dream, or did it actually happen? And so there's all this debate around it. But in this story, everyone believes as is. There's not debate around, was it a dream? What, like, do the imams debate like certain things in the Quran? Are there many opinions like we have in Judaism?
There is not the amount of arguing and discussion as there is in Judaism, which is something very, very, very nice that I. When I started
we argue a lot.
when I started getting into studying Judaism a little bit, I was surprised, and also it actually feels great to see that, and very satisfying to see how in the Talmud it's just the rabbis arguing over details lengthily back and forth, and then you have today still the rabbis reading it and still arguing about it.
Our saying, like, 2 Jews, 3 opinions.
Yes. Yeah. In Islam, you don't really have that, and there is less room for interpretation and less room for arguments. Because what you are supposed to do in Islam is to interpret it in the best way so that you perfectly follow what Muhammad says. In Islam, there is this thing called the Sunnah, which is what Muhammad did, how Muhammad lived, what he said, and so on, which you are supposed to perfectly imitate, emulate, and that is part of the faith. So it is a requirement of the faith. So you don't try to interpret what does this mean, what does that mean. You're supposed to just understand what Muhammad said and follow that, and that's it. But
what if someone has a different interpretation of what Muhammad said? So are there different sects of Muslims then they believe, well, no, he said it like this, so I'm just going to say something basic. So, instead of praying on our knees, we pray all the way out. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Do they break up then? Because how does everyone come to the same interpretation?
So there is a thing in Sunni Islam, which is the major branch of Islam, which over 85% of Muslims follow. There were early splits, but by the 2nd or 3rd century, at least, they came to an agreement of recognizing 4 schools of jurisprudence, of morals, and they have these 4 great teachers: the Shafi, Hanafi, Hanbali, and Maliki schools, which are dominant across the Muslim world. If you go to the Sunni Muslim world, you will find that they follow one of those 4. Okay. And they have very minor disagreements on things. Okay. So they have certain minor disagreements about food, about what to say, about where to put your hand when you pray, and so on. Yes. Things like that. But that's it. So it's not major disagreements. It's just very, very minor disagreements on these things. And the general idea is if you go outside of those, it is not accepted. And there were schools before that, and schools that emerged after it. Those were generally rejected. And then you also have the Shia, but the Shia are rejected in the Sunni Muslim world because they refuse to acknowledge the line of caliphs that came after Muhammad. And then they started splitting on the authority of the Quran and whether the Quran in its current form is actually the way it's meant to be, and so on. That's a whole lot of discussion. But yeah, in Sunni Islam, it's just minor disagreements, but major agreement.
I want to circle back to, you said Muhammad went to the Jews and the Jews quickly rejected him. We have this same narrative about Yeshu, that Yeshu was studying in the yeshivas with the rabbis, and then the rabbis rejected him. And now I'm thinking maybe us Jews need to stop rejecting people. And we just embrace them and we give them a little bit more love, and then maybe all these religions wouldn't have started.
Well, the thing is, I would say that there is a major difference here, which is very important to point out. So when Jesus was part of the Jewish community, he was a Jew himself. Yes. His followers were Jewish. His immediate followers when he was preaching were all Jewish. His followers after he died were all Jewish. And then his followers after he died slowly preached and started preaching to Gentiles, and saying that this is not just for Jews but also for Gentiles, and so on. And that's how it developed. But for the first many decades, the Christians still attended synagogue. They still went to the temple. They were still together with the Jews. Jesus himself was considered a rabbi.
Yeah.
He, according to the text itself, he went to the synagogue and together with the Pharisaic rabbis, he stood there and preached and read from the Torah with in attendance of the rabbis, where also a controversial scene happens in the Gospels, where he then after reading the Torah, he looks to the crowd and starts declaring things such as that the time has come and things like that, upon which the rabbis are like, okay, enough of this.
Yeah.
But so there's a difference. He comes from he comes from the Jewish culture, from the Jewish heritage. He comes directly out of Judaism, and he starts preaching things that are very, very controversial and very considered very dangerous
Radical.
in Judaism. And you could argue that according to the Jewish texts found in Deuteronomy, for example, it was expected of the rabbis to be at first very skeptical and then to be hostile toward him and to make sure that they follow the commandments in seeing if this guy is a false prophet, if he preaches in the name of something false, and then to hold him accountable for it. So you could argue that they did what was expected of them, which is also why even initially in the Christian text, according to the gospel, I say if Christianity is true, for example, you should understand that that from the Christian perspective, from Jesus's perspective, the Jews just did what they were supposed to do. Like the Pharisaic authorities did what they were supposed to do,
Right.
which is why he is quoted as saying, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do." So there shouldn't be that big of a controversy, except then afterwards when Christianity starts growing, and then how you deal with this. With Islam, there is a huge difference. With Islam, you have some guy who has nothing to do with Judaism, who has nothing to do with Jewishness, who has no Jewish ancestry, who has no Jewish education at all, who is actually referred to as the ignorant, the illiterate one, Muhammad. He comes out of a polytheistic culture. He doesn't know anything and goes up to the Jews, says, "Hey, you're supposed to listen to me. I'm a prophet of your God." And they start asking him questions, and he fails the question. He fails the test. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
They start at some point, by modern terms, trolling him. And
if you guys read the Talmud, actually, there's a lot of trolling in there too.
yeah, they come and ask him certain trick questions, and joking, and he falls for it, and he gets things wrong, and then he thinks, "Oh yeah, I got it right," and they're like, "Okay, yeah, he's obviously false prophet. Don't listen to this guy," and they go away, and then he gets really, really mad about this. And the thing is, the Quran's sentiment changes. So in the beginning, the first verses about Jews and Christians is that the Jews and Christians have nothing to fear. If they simply follow their religion, their reward will be waiting for them in the afterlife.
Right.
But then it shifts slowly to Jews and Christians need to convert to Islam because there is no other hope. Then convert to Islam or else. And eventually, chronologically, the last chapter is chapter 9 of the Quran, which is the most hostile. It literally says, fight them until they convert to Islam or they pay jizya, which is protection money, and because they are condemned. And it also says something very funny. I think Jews should know about this. When I tell Jews about this, generally they're very confused. But in chapter 9, verse 30, it tries to explain why the Quran is hostile against Jews and Christians and why it condemns them. And it says, the Jews say Uzair is the son of Allah, and the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. Now, Uzair is translated as Ezra.
Yeah.
But it says the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. They repeat what others said before them. May Allah destroy them. How deluded are they? And then everyone who reads these things, wait. So, okay, we get it. Christians do say the Messiah is the son of God, but Jews say Ezra is the son of. Which Jew says that?
Yeah, I've
and
never
you don't
heard
find
that.
it anywhere. And
We don't use that language, Son of God.
yeah,
Even the idea of Mashiach, Messiah, that term in Hebrew means the anointed one.
Yeah,
You know? And it's like from our text, it doesn't come from like he is the Son of God. It's just that in our government, we have a prophet, we have a king, and we have a Supreme Court called the Sanhedrin, and that we will appoint a king who's just a redeemer and he's a regular man, and there's no divinity factor to him. There's no God factor to him other than the fact that he's appointed by the prophet and he's approved by the Supreme Court to come and redeem the people.
The Quran seems to misunderstand really what Jews and Christians believe in. It says the Jews and the Christians say we are children of God, but Allah does not have children. If they are His children, why does He punish them? This is an outrageous statement, and so on. It says these things. It doesn't understand. So in the Jewish texts, you have the term like we are children of God, or they refer to somebody who is very holy as a son of God or a child of God, by which they mean like very, very, very exalted, very, very praise, very, very good, and all that. They don't mean that this person is literally a son, an offspring of God.
Right.
And then on the other hand, Christians view Jesus as literally the Son of God. So the Quran starts conflating things and things. Wait a minute, they all think that God has a bunch of offspring. And it starts condemning that. It's because the Quran comes from a place of ignorance and it doesn't understand the Jewish idea and the Jewish beliefs and mindset and all that. So the Christian and Jewish disagreement on the Son of God and all of that, and then the difference between children of God. Like Christians acknowledge the term children of God. They refer to God as the Father, but they don't believe that they are literally His children. They believe that Jesus is the Son of God, but that's it. That's their disagreement with Judaism. Islam comes from the outside and looks at this discussion and thinks, wait a minute, they all think they are children, literally children of God.
Okay, so what I've been seeing online, and I've had a person from the Nation of Islam on my show as well, follower Farrakhan. And he has said that, Muslims look favorably at Jesus and they talk very well about Jesus and they respect him as a prophet. And so now what I'm seeing online is now it seems like Muslims are, pairing up with Christians, and now it's against the Jews. And so is that true? Do Muslims talk favorably about Jesus and really honor him as a prophet?
Yeah, so Islam has this reverence for Jesus, where the Quran depicts Jesus as one of the best prophets sent by Allah, and he's also meant to come back before the end of time. These are ideas the Quran took.
So they also believe in the second coming.
Yeah.
Okay,
but they believe in a different kind of second coming. What the Christians believe that he is the Messiah and the Son of God, and he will come and set things straight, and then the end will come about, and so on. Muslims believe that he is not the Son of God, that he did not die and resurrect, which are things that the Christians believe. And they do think that when he comes back, they don't think that he has any divinity aspect to him. They think that when he comes back, he will be a violent Muslim ruler who will break the cross, kill the pig, and abolish the jizya, the protection money. And the interpretation throughout the Muslim history generally is...
So they believe he's going to come back as a Muslim.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to get that
They
straight.
believe he will fight the Christians and destroy Christianity, and will fight the Jews and destroy the Jews. And then he will unify everything for Islam and make the world pure, and then the end will come. So
they honor him as a powerful prophet, but that he will become one of theirs.
Yeah. They also condemn Christians, and they are, for example, Christians believe that Jesus came, he was crucified, he died, then he resurrected and rose to heaven. Muslims say that never happened. They say so the Quran says that the Jews tried to kill Jesus, but Allah only made it look like he was killed, but he wasn't actually killed. And it takes interpretations from certain heretical Christian sects later on, because the Christian understanding from the beginning was always that Jesus is not a mere human, that he's something
God
superior,
in the flesh,
that he's God, that he's God in one way or another.
Yeah.
So there were always discussions on, wait a minute, how does Jesus die? And then the mainstream Christians explained this with Jesus having two natures, or one nature that is partly God, or that is fully God and fully human, or that he has two natures, fully human, fully divine in one body, and so on. And this is how they explained things. But then there were also other branches that said, well, he was fully divine. His body, there was no human aspect to him. So when he died on the cross, he didn't literally die. It was only made so, or somebody else was placed instead of him. Muslims took those ideas from certain, Muhammad took those ideas from certain heretical Christian sects and adopted it, but he doesn't know why he adopted it, because they started those beliefs because they thought Jesus is God. He cannot die. He wasn't killed. So that's why they believe those things. But Muslims then adopt this and say, no, Jesus was not killed. He wasn't, but he was also just a human. Okay, then why wasn't he killed?
Right. So why do you think Islam spreaded so fast and so large, and we still have a lot of people converting to Islam today? And given that it's not a very old religion like Judaism and Christianity, like, we have these like memes and stuff where the Jew, the Christian, the Muslim fighting, and then we like push the Muslim out the way. We're like, you weren't even there yet, It's like, you're not even in the argument yet. Like, this is between the Jew and the Christian right now. Yeah. So why do you think it was, it spreaded so far, so wide, and was so widely accepted?
It's because Islam is different. It is, if you look at the spread of Christianity initially, until the Roman Empire, converted to Christianity, it was done through preaching. Like the initial centuries of Christianity are just Christians preaching to people and spreading the religion by word, by their mouths, going to different places and converting them to Christianity and so on. This is how it gets the recognition by the Roman Empire. Which then slowly accepts it as a religion and then eventually ends up converting to this religion. With Islam, it wasn't quite the same thing. Islam started out directly as a violent religion. Muhammad, in his first decade, he was just going around preaching, but also very harshly rebuking the polytheists, who then threatened him and said, "Get out of here or else." So he fled to Medina, where he then started his own Islamic state and started fighting immediately. Since that day, Islam didn't stop being violent, being expansionist. And this is not just something that I say. There is a book that is actually widely respected, very funny, by Ibn Khaldun, who is considered a forerunner of sociology in the golden ages of Islam. He wrote a book called Muqaddimah, which talks about Muslim history of societies, and Islamic history. And he has a section about the caliphate, and he says something very interesting there, where he says what makes Islam different from other religions like Judaism and Christianity is that unlike those religions, in Islam it is an obligation upon the believers to spread the religion, by will or by force, and that Islam has a ruler who is the military ruler and the societal ruler and so on, the caliph. So these are not my words; these are this guy's words. It was always part of Islam to spread the religion, to go to the neighbors and preach to them, and if they don't accept it, to then say, "Okay, you will be subjugated. You will be our subjects, and you will pay protection money and to us." And then they were then meant to, by enforcing the protection money, they were meant to be pressured into converting to Islam. So Islam spreads by dominance. That's how it spreads. This is why it spread. And then it's also forbidden to leave Islam. Once you have converted to Islam, if you then say, "Okay, I don't believe in this anymore," then you're supposed to be killed. So it has this very violent aspect of campaigning to conquer the world, which continued until the last century, where it was then abruptly, violently stopped. Gladly so, to be honest. And this is the difference. when you mentioned earlier that Muslims try nowadays to kind of partner up with Christians against Jews and all that.
Yeah.
This is deception, because Muslims and Christians are not meant to be allies. The Quran clearly says, in fact, very, very important, the Quran explicitly says, do not befriend the Jews and Christians. They are friends of one another. And whoever befriends them, he is one of them. And for them is no helper and no refuge. This is what the Quran literally says, that Jews and Christians are allies against you, and you are not allowed to befriend them, or you will be condemned like them.
So are you saying this is part of the reason why most Muslims are not practicing the Quran as is?
You could argue so, yeah.
Because,
yeah.
Well, I don't see them saying that part out loud.
Yeah. And when we do
Unless
say
you're
it,
saying they do know that and they're just being deceptive purposefully.
And I can say that this is actually very, very well. I learned this as a child. You know?
Oh, okay.
I learned this throughout my life. Muslims learn this throughout their lives. They hear this very easily. They hear condemnations about Jews, condemnations about Christians, and how they are not meant to befriend the Jews and Christians. Most Muslims around the world have heard of this. The religious ones who commit to it know this. And if they don't, if they try to, ally with the Christians at some points to get at the Jews, but then they don't talk about that aspect, it's because they don't want to talk about it, because they don't want to show it publicly. That's it. There is no aspect of being truthful in Islam. And whatever furthers the religion, whatever helps further the Islamic cause is good. That's basically what it is.
When you left the religion, what did your friends say? What did your family say? What was your pushback?
Maybe we should talk about how I grew up as a Muslim.
Yeah. How did you grow up as a Muslim?
So, so I was in Germany. My parents moved to Germany before I was born. With my father moved with his parents to Germany from Turkey, where they settled. That is where my parents got married, and that is where I was brought into existence. And my father very early on joined a very religious group in Germany, and since that day they have been incredibly religious, very observant. As a young person, I wasn't that observant, but I was respectful. Later on in life, in my late teens, I became heavily religious after a significant event happened where my aunt, who was very close to me, was killed by her husband, whom she was trying to divorce. He was abusive and so on, and she was very close to me. We would talk very often, and she was exploring religion and all that. That changed something in me, brought me closer to religion, which is very stupid, very ironic. But I started getting into Islam very heavily and practicing it. But even before that, as a child, the environment that I was in with my parents, part of the religious movements, I learned things at the age of, when I was in first grade. When I was in first grade, I learned that in the future, possibly in our lifetime, or very likely, there will be a day when we will fight the Jews, and we will kill the Jews until the Jews hide behind rocks and trees, and even the rocks and trees say, there is a Jew behind me, Muslims, come and kill him. But there is one tree named the Gargat tree, which will not say, because it is the tree of the Jews. This is something that I learned when I was in first grade. And this is not something that I was just taught, that is just part of that community. It is directly something that Muhammad said, something that Muhammad prophesied. So I know this is controversial, and I know that this is the dark truth, but this is what people need to know. It's especially what Jews need to know. This is regular mainstream Islamic belief that before things are over, before the end, one of the major prophecies is that the Jews will be killed completely by you. So the Muslims have this goal eventually to eradicate the Jews, and they will be hiding behind rocks and trees. And there are then interpretations on what these rocks and trees are supposed to be, and so on. But so I was raised as part of that, and at some point I was very, very religious. My parents were very happy with it, proud of it. After I left the faith, it was a huge disappointment to them. My father hasn't talked to me in 7 years or so. My mother talks to me very less and less and less over the phone. I lost most of my, family ties, connections, people that I knew, and all that. Lost my connection with my family, but found a new life. It's difficult, but it's what it is.
What made you not only just leave the religion, but then you started your YouTube channel and coming out very strongly against Islam? What made you feel like you needed to put a voice to come out against Islam?
It's hard to. I always thought it was a sense of of justice and of truth. It might just be. It might also be, clearly influenced by a personal desire by a personal anger against what I was brought up with, and what I saw, what I was taught, what I read in the scripture, in the texts. Because when I became very heavily religious, I read the Quran 3 times through to understand it, and that's actually what kind of pushed me out of the religion. And because I questioned it and just couldn't hold on to it any longer as I read more and more. But I think that looking back at everything that I was taught about others, about the world, about humanity, and how it all contradicted very much with the feelings that I've had forever, gave me this whole set. Gave me this anger and this sense of this is a giant lie. This is built on a lie, and a lie that is also not just a harmless lie. It is a very harmful and very hostile and very dangerous lie. I suffered under it. My life is nothing compared to some of the people that I met who suffered brutally because of Islam. It causes hostility in the world. It creates conflicts in the world. It sheds blood in the world. And in the West, for example, we have Muslim preachers going around pretending that it's all a peaceful, nice, happy religion and totally misunderstood. And whenever I see this, and this was my thought back then, when I see them go around and talk like that, I feel I just want to get up and say, shut up, you're lying. So that whole feeling of shut up, you're lying is what drove me to speak out against it. And that's where I am today. And as you can see, I'm quite honest and outspoken about it. And I just think that people need to know about what Islam is actually about, just because of even with the current war that is ongoing.
Yeah.
With the
Israel and Hamas.
Yeah.
So not only did you build your brand and your community of being against Islam and teaching people about the immorality in Islam, you then became a pro-Israel advocate.
Very heavily, very staunch.
So there's this saying my rabbi says to me, he's like, Ashira, you're Black, Jewish, and Republican. Why do you make your life so hard? And I always say, well, there's 2 things I can't change. I can't change being Black and I can't change being Jewish. And my politics are my politics. But you, like I'm saying to you, why are you making your life so hard?
Sometimes I think the same. I could have just stayed within the Muslim community and just kept my mouth shut and just, I didn't even have to strictly practice it. I could have just lived my life and that's it.
Or you still could have came out of Islam, but then you come to Israel, you come investigating, and then you're like, the Jewish people are great, and now people will probably hate you even more.
Yeah, it's because I was paid by the Mossad and I'm a secret Jew.
Yeah. So I still haven't got my checks yet. So if your check's clear, let me know because I need to hit up the administration. It's
so funny because almost everything that I do is funded by my own viewers and my own crowd, and then by me. And sometimes I can hardly make it, can hardly afford the things that I'm doing, that I'm getting. And then people accuse me of, you're just doing this because you're being paid by Israel and all that. Like, sometimes I say, I wish.
Same. I'm like, if people understood and they went to Israel and they understood the bureaucracy there and the fact that there's no way anyone's getting a check in Israel. It's not happening. And they're not paying influencers to speak about Israel. whether we're Jewish or we're non-Jewish and you're an ally, it comes from the heart of like why you go so strongly for Israel.
This was a little bit surprising to me. I mean, despite all of the conspiracy theories and all that, when I went to Israel, I thought there would at least be some effort from the government to, to organize people who defend Israel online.
Yeah.
And then I went to this this community, this organization of, I don't know, dozens, maybe 100 people or so coming together in this big office space, arguing about things and, defending Israel online and doing things like that. And as I'm talking to them, I'm like, okay, but you guys are, and do you get help from the government? And they're like, not really. They just, and they give us a few breaks here and there. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, but wait, they don't fund your stuff? No, they don't. We have a few people who want to fund this, who want to support what we do. So that's how we do it. And I thought to myself, wow, man, like even I maybe at some point thought, okay, maybe there is some truth to Israel just giving lots of money to people to support them.
We don't have it. The government doesn't have it. So like the Jewish people, we have to fund everything that we do. Like most people, they don't want to really seek funding from the government. It's just better to like go out and fundraise on your own if you can, like if you have an organization or something. So yeah, to your point, it's completely ludicrous. It's like, no, the government's not giving us out any money, okay?
Well, people think that Israel has an endless supply of money, that Jews can make money in their heads by magic, that they have superpowers, superhuman powers.
Yeah, I'm trying to tap into those.
Which is also...
You know what I think it is? I think that in America, they're so used to seeing the American Jews' success. And so then they're like, well, they're successful in America. And it's like, yeah, they're successful in America because America, the United States of America is successful. It's a place of opportunity. It's a place where any immigrant, any person can come and be successful. That same money does not translate to the Jews who live in Israel, or Jews who live other countries in the diaspora. Like every Jew is not rich. And you can see that when you go to Israel. Yeah. So, but I think it's just because people have such a limited view and then all the stereotypes.
There is a pattern in history of how people would view Jews in non-Jewish environments.
Right.
In Europe, for example, it's like you have a European environment, a Christian environment. The authorities in general don't have say that you shouldn't suppress and be hostile and kill Jews or anything like that. But then every single time, despite the authorities saying that, it develops somehow by society functions in one way or another, but they have something against the Jews and they don't want the Jews to participate in the everyday life that they do. So Jews build their own communities and their own functioning society and do jobs that are not accepted by the majority and get successful therein and usually hire each other because what else are you supposed to do? The others don't hire you.
Right.
So they build their own community. They have their own money, which they preserve, which they are always ready to take with them if things go wrong, if people come after them. And then bad times come about. War happens. And suddenly everyone suffers except the Jews because the Jews didn't participate in the general work of the society, not because they didn't want to, because you didn't allow them to.
Yeah.
They had their own stuff, which remained relatively stable and was largely unaffected by how war affected everything else. So then the people are like, wait a minute, why is everyone suffering but the Jews are not? Does this mean that the Jews that the Jews have a hand in all of this? Are they doing something? No, it's actually not. Just sit back and think about this again for a second. It's totally normal. No, we have no time to think. We have our emotions. We have to be angry.
Right.
So they start attacking the Jews and kicking them out and taking their belongings.
I was speaking to someone last week here on, his name is Curtis Schoon, and we were talking about the Black Wall Street in America, where we had our own Black Wall Street and our dollar just circulated in our own communities. And of course, the government attacked us and burned it down, etc. But he said, had we not had segregation and the white Americans rejecting us, we would have never built the Black Wall Street. And so those things have to force he was talking about for Black people, have to force us to build our own things and to circulate our own dollar. So it just goes back to what you're saying. And the Jews just had to do that in every country that they were in.
Yeah,
and they still do it today.
Even right now, I mean, it's no secret that when you go to to California and you go to the entertainment industry, you go to Hollywood, there is a large Jewish presence because Jews were the ones who were pioneers in building great stuff there.
Yeah.
And these were not even the right Jews. These were mostly secular Jews who were not the religious Jews walking around with their beards and their hats and all that.
Yeah.
And but why did this happen? Because they came from communities where they were generally pushed to the outside, to the extreme. They were not accepted by others. So here in America, it was again a pattern. It's a land of opportunity. Yeah. In a land of opportunity, they go westward. They see an opportunity, they seize the opportunity, they start making films and entertainment and so on, largely led by Jews who were not observant Jews, but they still have this attitude of, okay, we have to look out for each other.
Yes.
We have our own thing, other people don't want us among them, so, hey, cousin, what's up? You want to come join the company, you want to do something? So this is how they build the community. And then suddenly, after this completely normal process, later on you have people saying, wait a minute, why are there so many Jews in Hollywood? Well, why do you think?
Right. The theme that I'm hearing in our conversation is like rejection. It really redirects you.
Yeah.
And whether it creates Islam or Hollywood, it creates something. It forces a person to have to go and create their own thing.
Yeah.
So like in some cases, rejection is important. It can really help. It can really help you in your like fulfilling your destiny and working hard. And like I said, like we talk a lot about in the Black community integration, and we say like, listen, I think integration hurt our community. Like segregation actually forced you to focus on your own community and work hard to try to build your own community. So I guess rejection's not always so bad.
Not always so bad.
Yeah.
Unless it goes very, very
Unless
far.
you reject a radical.
Yeah. There is a very, very there is a very bad thing at play with when it comes to Muslims, when it comes to Islam and Jews, for example, specifically. You don't quite have the same pattern. Like so with Christians, when Christians were initially rejected by Jews, and then they built kind of resentment and started their own thing, and they went to the synagogue, then they were kind of basically pushed out of there, then they went their own way, then started rejecting Jews. But it's like, you rejected our savior, you rejected our beliefs, so we reject you, and so on. There's a whole discussion there. With Islam, when Islam comes into play, it is, you rejected the absolute truth, and we are supposed to fight and kill for this absolute truth. So rejecting us is not acceptable. And those who reject us the most and the firmest were the Jews at first. So Muhammad built this whole idea of being hostile toward the Jews. And I don't care how bad this sounds, but lots of people are lying nowadays when they say, oh, I grew up a Muslim and I never learned about, hating Jews and all that. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. You have there is the anti-Jewish attitude is so rampant and so dominant in the Muslim world. Most Muslims don't like Jews. Most Muslims hate Jews. Most Muslims are taught bad things about Jews. Most Muslims learn that Jews were the ones who are the worst toward Muhammad and Islam, and that most Jews eventually, before the Day of Judgment, will be eradicated by Muslims. They still believe that. Hamas believes and preaches the same thing. When Hamas came into existence in 1988, one of their main ideas was that the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, when they started cooperating with Israel and working toward a two-state solution, Hamas came in and said, how dare you? This is treason. You are not supposed to deviate from our goal to take the entirety of the land and to eradicate the Zionists and the Jews. So that's how they started getting power. And they still preach the same thing. They still preach to this day that in Arabic, not in English, of course, but in Arabic, that soon they will somehow succeed and kill the Jews and eradicate them and start the caliphate again there. This is what Fatih Hamad, Hamas speaker in Gaza, also in charge of the state television, Al-Aqsa TV. He said this back in 2018 to his own crowd during the what was it called, the peaceful March of Return. During that, he said to his people, "In 4 years, brothers and sisters, we will have fulfilled our goal of eradicating the filth of the Jews from Palestine, and the second step is to build the caliphate." That's what he was saying. Unfortunately, 4 years have passed. It didn't happen, probably because COVID slowed things down.
Why do people, oh goodness, why do people believe that Hamas is a resistance group and not a terrorist group?
Because they're stupid and they're ignorant. That's it. Hamas literally stands for Islamic resistance movement. They use the word resistance there to legitimize them as a resistance movement, but it literally stands for that Islamic resistance movement. In their covenant, in their charter, they laid it out very clearly that the presence or authority of any other religion besides Islam in the land is oppression, and they are meant to resist against that. So, and they are meant to resist against Zionism, against the Zionist authority, Zionist freedom, Zionist whatever it is, and that the only thing acceptable to them is that Islam rules in this land, and everyone else is a subject of Islam. And that the Jews have this, that the Jews are evil, and the Jews have this idea of subverting the whole world, and they were relying on things like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is a long debunked hoax.
Okay, what does the general, if you could speak for, obviously you don't know every Muslim in the world, but what is the sentiment among Muslims about Hamas? What were the Turkish people thinking about Hamas? What are your friends thinking about this?
There is a split of half of them. In a country like Turkey, for example, you would say that half of the population would say that they dislike Hamas, that they don't want Hamas. The other half would be between somewhat supporting and fully supporting Hamas, at least in their effort to fight against Israel and the Jews. In more religious Muslim societies, you will have more support for Hamas. But the general idea around the world right now is that whatever you think of Hamas doesn't matter that much. What matters right now is that they are fighting a just war against the Jews, against the Zionist oppressors. So this is what. So
they may not agree with all of what Hamas wants to do, but they justify it because, well, as long as you take out the Jews, and then we'll deal with Hamas later.
The funny thing is, Hamas is much more popular among Muslims than Hezbollah is, for example, where Hezbollah seems to be is supposed to be the more acceptable one compared to Hamas. Hamas is purely terrorist. Hezbollah works as part government, part terrorist organization. But Hezbollah also participated in oppressing Sunni Muslims in Syria and things like that, for example, and are a direct proxy of Iran. Hamas is also nowadays a proxy of Iran, but they weren't initially. And so they have something in common with Hamas, and they see a Palestinian resistance as a justified thing. So they will support Hamas more than they support something like Hezbollah, for example, despite their disagreements.
After coming to Israel, visiting Israel, seeing the people, touring around, you got video, all these things, what did you think about how Jews and Muslims live in Israel together? What did you see?
That's the one thing that I'm still very confused about, and that I still don't know how to really respond to, because for most of the time, I have said Islam is the problem. You need to recognize it, call it out as it is, and so on. And when I interact with Jews in Israel, what really surprises me is that lots of Jews in Israel don't think that Islam is that big of a problem. Many Jews in Israel, when I talk to them about Islam, tell me, "Oh, Islam is not that bad," and all that. And I think, are you kidding me? My entire life, I was taught that you are monsters, that you are evil, and you tell me that Islam is not a problem. But the thing is, the problem is that Israel seems to have a good way of handling internally, togetherness and tolerance and all that. Because there is even a poll, a Pew research poll from years ago, where it asks those in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria, and in Gaza about what they think of Jews. And over 90%, I think 98, 99% say they dislike Jews. And then they ask Muslims inside Israel what they think of Jews, and 61% or 60% say they view Jews favorably. This is the highest opinion of Jews anywhere across the Muslim world.
Wow.
You have it of Muslims who actually live inside Israel. They seem to mostly not have a problem with Jews at all. And when you go into the streets and ask them, there is this one guy, Corey Gil Schuster. He does these amazing videos where he goes around and asks people questions in Israel. The Israeli Muslims seem to be quite okay with Jews and with Israel, and they seem to not aim toward a full destruction of Israel, because Israel apparently seems to handle this whole mutual understanding and whatever it is. And the thing is, when I now go out there and talk to people about how Islam is the root of the problem, there is just one conflict, which is, yes, this is true on every front to me, but when I look at Israel, how am I supposed to? Why would I go to Israel and tell a Muslim and say to them that Islam is the problem, and break up what they are doing in Israel with the Muslims, which seems to be working?
Yeah,
and it's still something that I'm quite confused and conflicted about.
So, well, I know you said you're still confused, but so that's what I'm saying. Do you think there is this tolerance somewhere in Islam, and that, you know, those in Hamas and PLO, it's just radical? Or you're just saying Islam is just radical and you can't understand how the Jews and Muslims who live in Israel get along because we're with a radical group?
That one is more accurate. It's,
okay.
I wouldn't say that Hamas is radical, or that Hamas and the others terrorist organizations are like necessarily very radical. They are just a natural result of what Islam is. In fact, Hamas came out of the Muslim Brotherhood effort of reviving Islam, because Palestinian society to them was had lost faith too much and was getting secularized, which was a problem.
Right.
So their attempt was to bring Islam back and foster Islam, and they did a good job in reviving Islam, honestly, among the Gazans. But Islam is that way. Islam is that way. But in Israel, maybe despite the fact that Islam is inherently, hateful and all that, maybe if you start living together with Jews, you understand, wait a minute, okay, they're not actually that bad. And maybe it helps fight against this whole sentiment, this whole hostile sentiment. And that's very, very nice to see. And I find it great what Israel has been doing. The bad thing is that there is still the underlying fundamental hatred and the idea, the doctrine of hating and wanting to kill the Jews. This is what I'm so confused about.
It's hard. So when I lived the first time in Israel, I lived in Haifa. And so we have this saying in Israel that Jerusalem is the old, Tel Aviv is the now, and Haifa is the future. And Haifa has tons of Arabs and Jews that live together peacefully. And I studied at Haifa University, and I had 2 Muslim roommates. And one was religious, and I had 2 Arab roommates. One was Muslim and one was Christian. And the Arab Christian, she wasn't so religious, and the Arab Muslim, she was religious. And so I remember the Arab Muslim was fasting, and I was fasting for something else. And she was just kind of like puzzled by me. At the time, I didn't really dress so religiously, but she would see me always praying all the time, but I would have shorts on and tank tops. And she couldn't figure out why I love God so much, but I dressed in shorts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, we developed this friendship. And then fast forward to 2019, I'm studying at Hebrew University. Again, tons of Arabs on campus. And I get lost. I get lost in East Jerusalem. And I fell asleep on the train. And then I woke up and I'm in East Jerusalem, where everyone says, don't go to East Jerusalem, Yeah. So I end up in East Jerusalem. I get out and there's a Muslim girl. She's like, are you lost? And I'm just like, yeah. She's like, my father can give you a ride back to the university. So I'm like, okay. So they give me a ride back. It's totally fine. All my friends, all my Jewish friends, they're all texting me, oh my God, I can't believe you got into a car with, an Arab. They could do whatever to you. And I was like, no, it's fine. I'm good. Anyways, I end up making friends over in East Jerusalem. So I find myself going to Ramallah and going to the West Bank all the time with them. And at the time, I didn't keep kosher. and I, ate at their homes and, everything. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, on a micro level, we can really get along. Because I remember the family owned a flower shop in Bet Hanina. And I remember going to the flower shop all the time, and Jews would come and pick up flowers from there, because it's like right on this border of where Jews and Arabs kind of live together, but you're like deep in East Jerusalem at this point. But some Jews still live over there, and they would shop together, and the Arabs knew Hebrew, and some of the Jews knew a little bit of Arabic, but not really. We're all like, shwai, shwai, you know what I mean? We're like trying to get by. But I remember like on a micro level, I was like, we all like get along. I remember there was a religious Muslim woman who saved this little Jewish boy from like getting hit by a car, and then made sure he got on the bus. And it was just like, I don't know, we're all kind of like living life together. And so because I spent so much time with this family, and I would go to their weddings and all of these things, I was like, is this just like on a macro level, like they just don't want us to have peace in the world, Because I remember being with these families and feeling like, oh, they're just like us. Like they want to, raise their family. They want to see their kids get married. They want tons of children. It felt very Jewish to me in that way. And they break bread just like we do. They don't have like Shabbat, but like they eat tons and big meals. And I just thought, is this just like the way of the world that they want us to have war? Because I was having such a wholesome experience among the Palestinians that I did know.
I wish the whole world was like that. The bad thing is, when October
You're going to kill my optimism.
I don't know. When October 7th happened, which was a horrible day, there was they didn't just kill Jews.
Right.
They came in and also killed Muslims.
Yep.
And Christians and others. And there is a footage that I remember when I looked at all of the things that they recorded from their own cameras when they came into Israel, where they are on the road and they got a hold of they stopped a vehicle, and the driver was an Arab Muslim, and he was saying, "No, wait, I'm Arab, I'm Muslim," and they didn't care at all. They beat him with their gun, took him out of the vehicle, tied him up. Stripped him naked and put him on the ground with his chest, and the guys in charge with their Islamic beards and everything walk around, and he tells them, please, I'm Arab, I'm Muslim, and the guy who is mainly speaking goes up to him and yells at him and says, shut up, you're a traitor, you're a dog, you work for the enemy, you work for the kafir, you for disbelievers. Yeah. You are an enemy. You are like them, or something like that. So he basically describes him as a filthy traitor because he's a normal part of Israel. Yeah. And at some point, the guy invokes Allah and he says, "Don't mention Allah. You are with the enemy, with the dogs, and all that." So this is how they view it. Yes, in Israel you have Israel somehow makes it work to coexist and to foster a peaceful environment, and that is all good. But on the outside, those who don't participate in that, they come in and what they see is those Muslims who have become peaceful and functioning in Israel. They are traitors. They have lost their way. They have gone astray. So.
I just had a thought as you were speaking, and I kind of agree with what you're trying to say earlier, because we always say, if Israel was not Israel and it was Palestine, could Jews live freely in Israel? And it's no. The only reason why we can coexist and we have peace that way is because it is a Jewish state.
Yes.
And if it was not a Jewish state, then we wouldn't see the same coexistence that we see today.
Yes. And
that does make a difference that it is a Jewish state.
This is why Israel is absolutely necessary. This is why they objected to any kind of Jewish autonomy or authority in the early 1900s, when the plan was to build a Jewish homeland, the other side objected to it, the Arab side, the Muslim leadership. When they said, okay, share a land together, they still rejected it. When they said, okay, we will give most of the land to the Arabs and give this tiny little part to the Jews, they still rejected it.
Yeah.
When they said, how about we give this to you, you will call it whatever you want in Arabic, and the Jews will also have their own autonomous region, and they still rejected it. They never wanted anything other than complete supremacy, and the Jews there are not allowed to further come in here, to come back. Those who stay here are only allowed to be our subjects and to be at our mercy. I talked to Dr. Einat Wolf. She pointed out very much.
Amazing.
Yeah, she is wonderful.
Yeah.
She also pointed out something very, very accurate, which was that in history, yes, Jews did exist in Muslim lands, but they did not exist peacefully and they did not exist freely. The idea of the Muslim rulers was always that Jews are meant to be our subjects and they are meant to obey and do whatever we say. They're supposed to be pathetic and weak, not autonomous. And when we don't like something that they do, then we are meant to put them in their place. So it is unacceptable to them that Jews have their own freedom and their own authority. And then that you actually live in a state that is ruled by them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm understanding from their perspective, like, how dare I live in a state that's ruled by them?
Exactly.
Yeah. As a conqueror and as a dominant force, because you said, Islam spread by having dominance. Yeah. So it's like now this conquering dominant, think of a conquering dominant person, and then you're going to say, but you're coming under my control.
Yeah. And even in religious communities that are not necessarily violent or outright hateful, you still have the belief that eventually, especially in this land that we're talking about, Jerusalem and its surroundings, especially there, eventually when the time comes and the end times come, and the Muslim idea is very much always that, has always been that it's imminent for 1,400 years, that when the time comes, things will change anyway, and we Muslims will be in charge, no longer the Muslims, and we will deal with it. So here is the paradox. It's like, yes, you learn to live together in peace, and you learn not to hate and not to do these things, but once you start practicing your religion and following it, you still learn that the time will come eventually. We don't know how it happens, but the time will come that we will fight the Jews and we will take over. And
So this is really less about land.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people believe that it's about land? That if we just gave Palestinians a state, just gave them their land back, then all would be well?
This is I read Theodor Herzl's Jewish State pamphlet and also his book, The Old New Land. He had a very, very utopian and very hopeful, very optimistic idea of when we go to the land and we work together with those who also live there, and we settle there with our fellow Jewish brethren and with the others, with the Arabs and the Muslims, we will naturally develop a mutual respect and understanding, and the future will be bright. We will be understanding and loving each other and so on. This was his idea. Yeah. This was his ideal of the future. And the secular Jews that were mostly in charge of Israel in the from the modern state's founding until recent decades still had this whole idea that it's just about land, and you could give land and make peace and get recognition and all of that, and things will be fine in the end. They will see that we are not that bad.
Giving land has never given us peace.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It simply doesn't work that way. You have to recognize and have to understand that at the root of this conflict there is something much, much bigger and something more sinister at play. And back in the 40s, it was the Arab leadership. The only Arab leader recognized was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Amin al-Husseini, who looks like Ryan Gosling. I always joke. But he was not such a cute guy. He met up with Mussolini and with Hitler and Heinrich Himmler. And And Hitler promised him that if they succeed, once they are done with the British and the communists, they would come down to the Middle East and recognize him, the Grand Mufti, as the leader of all the Arabs and Muslims, and they would together exterminate the Jewish element in their world as well, and thereby wipe out the Jews completely. The Arab leader, the Muslim leader, was fine with that. He got that promise from Hitler explicitly. This is directly from the German documents of foreign policy. The document is out there. Hitler made the promise, and the Grand Mufti accepted it. He was okay with it. He wanted to run with it. In 1947 and 48, the idea was to fight and destroy any attempt by the Jews to create their own state, and then to eradicate them there as well. Hamas's effort has always been to eradicate the Jews and to get rid of them. It has always been, and they justified it based on their religion. The thing that I mentioned, the prophecy of killing the Jews when the time comes, and they hide behind rocks and trees, but you will still kill them, is directly found in the charter of Hamas. They cite it there directly, and they say that this is Allah's promise, and they will aspire and hope for this promise no matter how long it takes. It's the failure of people to see what is actually the cause of this conflict on the other side.
The fact that we are not fighting for land, we're fighting against an ideology. How do you see this region of the world moving forward in peace? We always talk about peace in the Middle East. Do you think it's possible after visiting Israel and seeing the coexistence there?
I tend to be quite pessimistic when it comes to Islam, and say that I encourage Muslims to recognize what Islam is and to leave Islam, because I don't think that there is, because I think as much as you might change Islam or try to live with Islam, it is at the core not meant to be peaceful. So I care about Muslims when I say that it's for their best interest. It's for the best interest of everyone in the world. That they leave Islam and leave it behind and move towards something else. I don't know, if all the Muslims suddenly converted to Christianity, the world would be a better place. If they converted to something else, it would be a better place. If they became atheists or agnostics, it would be a better place. Islam is bad for everyone involved. Israel has been doing a good job in trying to reach diplomatic solutions with different countries. There was a recent poll where most of the Arab world agrees by now that eventually there has to be a diplomatic solution with Israel, because military solution won't happen. The only people who disagree with that are the Shia population of Lebanon, who support Hezbollah, and those in the Palestinian territories. So they still want war. I don't know how this is going to happen, and although I should know because I'm a prophet. Yes. But
prophesy good things.
I don't know. I think that Israel just needs to recognize what is really at play here, especially what the other side believes in and what they aim for, and then figure out a good way to deal with it and be honest about it. Be open about it, and stop fooling yourselves and stop fooling others. Stop making it look like it's just about land and about rights and about borders. The other side is quite clear that it's not about borders and not about land. The other side firmly believes that eventually they will take all of this land and they will destroy you. You should probably admit that, acknowledge that, and then deal with it accordingly.
Any final words about how Jews and Muslims can build bridges with one another? Like, what can Muslims learn from Jews, and what can a Jew learn from a Muslim that would build a bridge between the two?
I would say that, what Muslims should learn foremost is that the prophecies that they were told will never come true. The prophecies that they were told were false. The ideas that they have about Jews from a religious perspective come from an ignorant and uninformed place. I'm not trying to be nice here. I'm just saying it as it is. And they have to recognize this. Once you interact with Jews, once you interact with Israelis, you will recognize that that they are not those people that you thought they were. When I went to Israel, I was amazed with how wonderful people were there. And I'm still shaken by it, very honestly. I went to many countries around the world, and I have never felt such warm embrace and peace and goodness anywhere else from people who didn't even know why I was there. And but then especially also from those who know why I was there. Muslims should realize that Jews are not these people that they were taught about in their own beliefs, that they are actually fantastic people, and that you can make peace with them instead of trying to fight them and trying to misinterpret and misunderstand everything that they do and say. And you need to let go of your own radicalism. If you are taught all the time that Jews are the ultimate enemy, of course you will always look for a confirmation bias and always say, look, this is why the Jews are the worst. You see what they are doing. No, you are causing it by viewing them that way. Maybe try to make peace. Maybe try to have a positive outlook. Maybe try to understand the other side. And in my opinion, let go of your false beliefs. And for the Jews, I would say that they need to realize that Muslims are taught from a young age really, really bad things. And when you are taught very, very bad things, you are raised with that, and you take that into your adult life. Contrary to popular belief, Islam is not very close to Judaism. It is just a poor copy of it, mixed in with a lot of bad things that naturally lead to hate and destruction. And it might be your duty to be a light unto the nations and to, educate the other side.
Yeah, it is our duty. That is why we are chosen, and we're chosen to be the light unto the nations and to give morality to the world. So we will do our job and stop rejecting people, and we'll start giving them God. Apostate Prophet, thank you so much for coming on the Black and Jewish podcast. This has been such an insightful conversation. I learned so much about Islam, and I hope that we'll have future conversations.
Thank you so much, Ashira. It's a great pleasure. Very happy to have met you, to do this together, enjoy your friendship and everything, and hope we will do much more in the future.
Thank you. All right, guys, that was a heavy episode on the Black and Jewish podcast. I want you to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Islam, your experiences with Muslim people, with Jewish people. Do you think we can, build bridges together, build peace together? Like, comment, and share this episode, and I will see you next week.